Hi, this is Gabe at fluentforever.com. In these 4 videos, I'm going to show you the bare essentials of phonetics and spelling for Hebrew. If you're using one of my pronunciation trainers, don't worry about memorizing this stuff. The trainer will do that for you. Just watch and pay attention. Everything you see here will show up sooner or later within the trainer. I'll be going through Hebrew using the International Phonetic Alphabet, or IPA. This lets us simplify our discussion a lot, since I only need to talk about around 28 symbols, many of which you know already, instead of trying to wade through around 150 spelling rules. So, let's get started. We'll break this up into 4 parts. The first will talk about the Hebrew alphabet. The second will go over Hebrew's consonants. The third will go over the vowels, and the fourth will cover a few of Hebrew's spelling rules. And just so that we're really accurate with our examples, I have a native speaker here, Maya, who will be helping us out.
Hi.
We'll be discussing modern standard Hebrew, as spoken in Israel. There are other dialects. For instance, many Hebrew speakers who grew up in countries where one of the primary languages was Arabic or Persian, these speakers use the Mizrahi dialect of Hebrew, and they pronounce words with all sorts of cool sounds that also show up in Arabic. But standard Hebrew is a bit simpler than Mizrahi Hebrew, and more importantly, it's more widely spoken, which is why we're going to go over it here. So, let's get started. In this first video, we're not going to cover the entire Hebrew alphabet. That would be a bit overwhelming, but I want you to get a feel for how the alphabet works. So we'll start with an example.
This is the Hebrew word delet.
First off, this word is composed of 3 letters. Hebrew reads from right to left, so our very first letter in this word is on the right side.
It's dalet, and it makes the d sound in delet.
Our second letter, right in the middle?
That's lamed. It makes a l sound in delet. And our last letter is tav, which makes the t sound.
Now you might be asking yourself, where on earth are the vowels?
How do you know that this is delet rather than dalat or dulot or dilot?
Well, let me show you a different version of this same word. There are 2 tiny symbols here that were not in the original word I gave you. Those 3 little dots arranged in a triangle, that's the e vowel.
You stick it under a dalet and you get de. You stick it under a lamed and you get le.
And so now you're seeing all of the sounds in delet. Now, why didn't I show you those vowel symbols earlier? The Hebrew writing system is known as an ABJAD. With a couple of small exceptions that we'll address in videos 3 and 4, every letter in the Hebrew alphabet is a consonant. And in most texts, it's the reader's job to supply the vowels. On the surface, this may seem kind of nuts. Now, why give readers only some of the information about how to read things? But even in English, which is not an ABJAD, you can knock out all the vowels in a sentence and get something that's not all that hard to read. We're actually using this kind of ABJAD shorthand in English relatively frequently because of Twitter and texting. This works fine, as long as you're already familiar with all the words you're reading, which if you're watching this video, you probably aren't. And as such, it's super helpful to see the vowels too. These little symbols are called diacritics, and for the rest of our videos, I'll be using them in our examples. In all likelihood, you'll see diacritics in most Hebrew textbooks and student resources. This is a good thing. They're really useful in the beginning. And then, as you pick up more vocabulary, you can kind of wean yourself off of them without too much trouble. There are just a couple of other things I wanted to discuss in this first video. First off, I wanted to show you some letters that change shape a little bit when they come at the end of a word, so you don't get surprised when you run into them.
Here's the letter nun, for instance.
It makes a n sound, and it looks something like a closing bracket.
You can see it at the beginning of neshika and the middle of gina.
The slightly tricky part comes when that letter shows up at the end of a word.
Here's shen.
And you'll notice that the bottom of that bracket just kind of fell down. That's a final nun. Hebrew has a few letters like this, and they thankfully do look pretty similar to the original letters. Usually the top is the same and the bottom is a straight line down.
As in fe, tzadi, and chaf.
In fact, the only one that doesn't really follow that pattern is a final mem that makes an sound. The only other thing I wanted to mention is a dot,
known as a dagesh,
that helps differentiate between pairs of similar consonants.
This, for instance, is the letter vet, as in teva, and this is the letter bet, as in beitza.
The bet has the exact same shape as a vet. It has that extra dot, that dagesh.
Same thing happens with chaf and kaf and fe and pei.
Like the vowel diacritics, dagesh is super helpful in pronouncing Hebrew words, and again, like the vowel diacritics, it's not going to be there for you in standard written texts. But we'll be using it here, and you'll see it in your textbooks, and over time, you'll be able to handle words that don't give you all the information you need. There's one last thing I wanted to mention here before we finish. The consonants in this chart are the only ones that change sound when they have a dagesh, but they're not the only consonants that you'll see with a dot in them. Most consonants, in fact, can be written with that dagesh, but it doesn't actually change how they're spoken in modern Hebrew. So, if you see a dot in a consonant that's not on this chart, just don't worry about it. It's pronounced the same. And with that, we're ready to move into the Hebrew consonants for video 2. To quickly review what we covered here,
We began by discussing the word delet.
mostly to illustrate that Hebrew words are composed of consonants written from right to left, and when you're looking at text written for students, you'll be given vowel diacritics underneath those letters. We then chatted a little bit about final letters that have alternate shapes when they show up as final consonants.
For instance, nun, which looks like a closing bracket in neshika and gina, but looks a little different at the end of shen,
Last, we talked about the diacritic dagesh.
which, when you're looking at texts for students, is going to help you tell the difference between letters like bet and vit, chaf and kaf, and fei and pei.
And that's all for this video. Our next stop, Hebrew's consonants.